unmute?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
So Laurie, we are ready.
Okay, it still appears pre-live to me. Okay. Hello, and apologies for the delay in starting our event this afternoon. Very good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from, to this second episode of the BAM-E-DUNYA webinar series. My name is Laurie Vasily, and I'm the head of Knowledge Management and Communication Unit at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. Our colleagues Sushmita Kunwar, Udayan Mishra, and Saisa Pradhan are with us in this meeting, assisting with all technical and logistical matters. If you have any questions or technical issues, please reach out to one of them on MS Teams separately. We're organizing this event as a part of a series, a week-long series of events, a week for mountains, if you will, to mark the International Mountain Day, which takes place on 11 December every year. From today through 17 December, our events are dedicated to acknowledging the importance of mountains to life and highlighting this year's theme, which is mountain biodiversity. We'll be very happy to see you in the other events as well. Since we have a large number of attendees in this virtual event, I'd like to kindly request all participants to ensure that their microphones are on mute, their videos remain off, and for our distinguished speakers, may I request that you place your mobile phone on silent. I'll request each individual speaker to turn on their video just as I introduce them. Our distinguished speakers today include Dr. Amina Rajput, who's the program coordinator for the Central Asia Stunting Initiative of the Aga Khan Foundation. And Mr. Melad Ul Karim, who is the national lead of the Agriculture and Food Security from the Aga Khan Foundation, Afghanistan. Dr. Abid Hussain, our food security economist from ICIMOD. Dr. Nomina Amis, a nutritionist and gender focal person, FAO Pakistan. And Dr. Ghulam Rasool, chief economist at ICIMOD. We have two segments to this program. Before we hear from the speakers and get into the discussions, please allow me to state some house rules. To ensure smooth course of the webinar, speakers are requested to turn their cameras on at all times and turn their microphones on mute. Turn them on only when you're speaking, otherwise on mute. All attendees, please, I'd like to invite you to, in the chat box under the Q&A section, to write any questions that you might have throughout the program, and our speakers will be reviewing those questions as the program ensues. So please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A section. And please do mention the name of the speaker if you have a specific question. To begin the program, I'd like to invite Dr. Abid Hussain to provide us with the context behind this second session of the BAM-E-DUNYA webinar series. Over to you, Abid.
Thank you very much, Laura. So my screen is visible?
Yes, it is, Abid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to introduce the context of this webinar on very important issue on sustainable food and nutrition security in high altitude mountain areas, particularly in HKPL, Hindu Kush, Karakoram, Pamir landscape. So we mostly hear about food security in terms of outcome indicators like stunting, wasting, overweight, or undernourishment. And actually, there is very complex multidimensional concept behind these outcome indicators. Till 2019, food security was comprising of 4 dimensions. Now it's containing 6 dimensions. This year's report of high-level expert panel on food and nutrition security, they added 2 new dimensions. One is agency and another one is sustainability. So food security is multidimensional concept and related national or global commitments. If we achieve these commitments nationally or globally, it may help achieve several other national commitments and global goals, broader goals like SDGs, right from poverty, water, health, education, gender, all these are embedded in, even related to biodiversity, also embedded in dimensions of food and nutrition security. Despite a lot of efforts by member countries of HKPL, 4 countries are sharing HKPL landscape: Tajikistan, Afghanistan, China, and Pakistan. 3 countries, particularly Tajikistan, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. A lot of efforts have been put to improve food and nutrition security in high altitude mountain areas. But still, these mountain areas are lagging behind. There are several reasons behind that. There are challenges, ecological challenges, socio-economic challenges, and climatic challenges, more importantly, are actually posing challenges to agriculture and food and nutrition security in high altitude mountain areas, particularly HKPL. So one more thing, we see food security in silos as a sectoral approach. It's very complex, multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional approach. And especially 2 sectors, food and energy, is very important to see together with food. So there is need to use food, water and energy nexus as an enabler to harness the opportunities and cope with the challenges related to water resource governance, efficient use of energy, and sustainable food and nutrition security leggings. So it's very, very important to understand the mountain specificities. Mountains are very different in terms of nature of food security and drivers of food security. And they are facing more severe challenges, socioeconomic, demographic, ecological, or climatic challenges. So there is a very much needed aspect in policies, action, and research. We have to understand these specificities. This webinar is a kind of reminder for us to understand better way the food and nutrition security, particularly HKPL. So for this purpose, EC-Mode, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, and Aga Khan Foundation, they join hands to bring experts with diverse background, not only in terms of thematic areas, but in terms of practice, policy, and action, to achieve 2 major objectives. Number one, to further understand the food system, related challenges and arising opportunities, and to understand food, water, and energy nexus as an enabler to achieve sustainable food and nutrition security in HKPL. Another core objective is to unleash the potential of transboundary cooperation for healthy and resilient HKPL. I hope this webinar will be very helpful to understand and achieve these objectives. Over to you, Laurie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abid. I'd now like to introduce the head of our Strategic Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Unit here at EC-Mode, Farid Ahmed, who will speak on behalf of our EC-Mode Director General, Dr. Pema Jamsho. Farid, over to you. Okay, seems our colleague Farid Ahmed is having a little bit of a problem connecting just now. So let's go ahead with the program, and our remarks on behalf of the Director General of EC-Mode will come a bit later. I'd like to introduce now Mr. Nicholas McKinley, Global Director of Programs of the Aga Khan Foundation, to make his welcome remarks. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Laurie. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
And Abid, thank you very much as well for a very clear and strategic description of the opening here in this what is, I think, probably one of the most critical issues facing us now in the world. I know the world we have all been facing the challenges of the global pandemic around COVID-19, and many people have started to look at that immediate risk, threat, and danger. But I think what I'm so pleased to be part of this webinar, and we in the Aga Khan Foundation hold ICIMOD in such high esteem. We're so proud to be working with you on these important issues, because we need to look ahead, and we need to be able to see that in the years to come, this issue of climate, which has not gone away. And we know we're dealing with a very terrible pandemic, but climate still remains a major challenge. And it's really preoccupying the minds of many people worldwide, including a lot of young people. So I think that to keep on track and to keep thinking about these really important things, and they'll become more important as the years go ahead. For those of the attendees, and thank you everybody for taking time to join us today, the foundation, the Aga Khan Foundation, is working within a broader Aga Khan development network. We work across Asia and Africa. The foundation itself is really interested primarily in investing in human potential, expanding opportunity, and improving quality of life. We have a particular focus on women and girls, and we have a number of thematic areas that we work on. We are driven by the ethics of pluralism, self-reliance, dignity, and we have a very big role in strengthening civil society and civil society institutions. In terms of the ecosystems we work in, we work across the plains of Eastern Africa and South Asia. We're on the coasts. We work on the coasts of India, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Mozambique, Madagascar. We're seeing many dynamics of change taking place in those regions. And importantly for today's conversation, we work in a lot of the mountain areas of the Himalaya, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and northern Pakistan, and particularly the Hindu Kush and Pamir range for us, very, very important. So as we come to today, as I said, I think that there's a strong alignment of purpose and geography between ICIMOD and the Aga Khan Foundation. And I hope that we can increase our collaboration as we go forward. And I think we complement each other very, very, very uniquely. We have a substantial body of work over 50 years on these regions, and particularly the mountain ranges. We will draw on our other institutions in the Aga Khan Development Network, some of you may know, the University of Central Asia, which has campuses across 3 Central Asian countries of the Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. And within the University of Central Asia, there's an institution called the Mountain Societies Research Institute, which was located in Bishkek. I think now it's moving to the mountain areas of Pamir, and will be located in a small town of Horog, where we have a campus there. We also have the other university, the Aga Khan University, and we have other agencies in the AKDN, our network, such as the Habitat Agency that looks at hazard risk mapping and the dangers that we face in these very seismic prone areas. I think also, just on a point, the foundation brings our work, and you'll see today we have 2 speakers that have kindly offered to contribute. One is from our agriculture and food security team and leads our work in Afghanistan, and the other, Dr. Amina, works in our global health and nutrition team. Both excellent professionals, I'm so glad. But we also have a lot of work around civil society and economic inclusion. So I think our kind of multi-sector approach is really important. If I could end by saying, and compliments to everybody that put this webinar together, I think it's really such a crucial topic. And I think webinars such as these really allow us to share best practices, create communities of practice, and reach out beyond our immediate offices and living rooms and bedrooms, as many of us are restricting our movements because, as I mentioned, the pandemic. So I'm very happy to participate, very happy to listen. I think almost everybody on this call knows a lot more than I do about this topic, so I'm very keen to learn more. So I'll hand back and just thank you once again for allowing me to make some opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's wonderful to hear from the Global Director of Programs of the Aga Khan Foundation and your gracious remarks and the comprehensive work that you're doing. And we too at Easy Mode very much appreciate the Aga Khan Foundation and are happy at the partnership that we've been able to forge. So I'd like to hand over to my colleague Farid Ahmed, who is the head of our unit, our Strategic Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation unit. And he will be giving remarks on behalf of the Director General of Easy Mode. Farid, can I ask you to turn on your mic and your video? Okay, seems as though Farid is having a little bit of trouble connecting just now.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Farid Ahmad, thank you for connecting and giving welcome remarks to this webinar on behalf of the Director General.
Can you see me is my voice clear?
Yes, we can both see you and your voice is clear. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon and good morning where we are, and good evening to everyone. I'm Farid, as has been mentioned. I am very happy to be here and speaking on behalf of the Director General of Isimot, Dr. Pema Jensu. And I would just like to welcome everyone for this important webinar that is being organized in the series of webinar which the Hindu Kush Karakoram Pamir Landscape Program of Isimot is organizing. This time, I just would like to acknowledge the support and the partnership with the Aga Khan Development Network. AKDN, is our very long-term strategic partner of Isimot, and we have a memorandum of understanding to pursue the sustainable development agenda in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. Coming to this particular topic, ladies and gentlemen, I think this topic is one of the core area for Isimot, and looking at the livelihood, food security and agriculture issues in the high altitude mountain areas. And I must say that, our partnership with the Aga Khan Development Network and also with Aga Khan Foundation and University of Central Asia, we have been discussing this topic and partnership issues for a number of years. I think also we have very closely worked specifically in Pakistan to bring experts who can provide their expert opinion and support and come up with the strategies how we can come up with solutions in the high altitude areas. You all are aware that climate change has been one of the most important factors affecting not only the ecosystems but also livelihoods and food security, specifically in the high altitude areas, where in certain areas we see huge precipitation, and that is reaching to those areas which has not been the case in the past decade. And at the same time, in certain areas, there are long droughts and dry seasons which are prevailing. So it's not only affecting the food security of people, but also the fodder issues are there for animals, and which is the major source of livelihood in these, high altitude mountain areas. So I think I feel that this is very timely initiative for ISIMOT and Akhan Development Network coming together and starting deliberation that how all of us and all the stakeholders, and specifically, with Akhan Development Network, they are the, development, as Nick has clearly mentioned that they are the, development partner on the ground, dealing with these issues, taking the research findings onto the operational aspect and, get it done, solving the issues of people at the community level. So we are very glad that I think we can bring the, two things. One is the regional learning. What is happening in the similar ecological site, let's say in China and some other, areas. I think we can bring that learning from other HKH countries. And at the same time, I think we can bring, research support to solve these issues. And having the partnership with Akhan Development Network, I think we will have very effective implementation mechanism on the ground. I think we are very glad and will be very happy to actually extend any support and any partnership that is required to get these problems, solved, in the whole HKPL area. So today, actually, I'm very glad that there are eminent speakers are joining this, webinar. And my colleague, as Dr. Abid has very clearly laid out the purpose and the background that what kind of issues are out there. I don't want to extend going into the details of these, issues. And again, I just wanted to thank the organizers for having such an important, webinar or such an important topic. And I'm sure that this is going to help us to have better learning and insight, into these issues. I'm also happy to see my colleagues, Milad, also coming in from Afghanistan, having a rich experience, across in this, high altitude area. So I think it's going to be very important event for all of us. Once again, thank you all the organizers and specifically the Akhan Development Network colleagues, both from Geneva and also from Afghanistan joining us. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to have the summary and the conclusion of this important webinar. Thank you very much, Laurie. Sorry for this hiccups in the joining of this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farid, Ahmed. We very much appreciate your making remarks, and this is the nature of some of the problems that we face, some of these technological problems in this environment. So thank you for making those remarks. And we'll move now into the substance of the program with the presentations from our experts. And I invite you to write questions there in the question box. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Milad Ul Karim to give his talk on understanding the food systems in high altitude mountain areas. Milad, over to you.
Thank you very much. I will upload my presentation. I hope you have it.
Thank you, Milad. Yes, we can see it quite nicely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us on this very interesting webinar with our colleagues from ISIMOT. I know that there will be a number of audience who would have different levels of understanding about food systems. Therefore, I wish to start my presentation with the introduction of the food systems. First of all, a food system is a pathway that food travels from conception in the field to digestion in our stomach. In between, there is a lot of things that happen, but very, very shortly, it includes growing, harvesting, processing, packaging, transporting, marketing, consuming, and disposing. So the foundation of food system was laid approximately 11,000 years ago, when humans went from being hunters or collectors of the food to growers. And then they explored more lands to grow more, and they learned how to store or exchange the surplus for other goods with their neighbors. And then this gave birth to farming and trade, which over the centuries created villages, towns, and countries, and eventually it developed into global food systems. The food system is an important topic for developing countries like ours, as it is now evident that our food systems are draining our health systems, accelerating climate change, and using natural resources most unsustainable way. Before I go into the food systems in high mountain areas of Hindu Kush, Karakoram, and Pamir, I wish to briefly touch upon some basic elements of food system. The first, food system is part of biology, and thus it's dependent on the natural elements, which we call biosphere. And a healthy biosphere is very important to continue to produce food enough for the human population. But we know that all through the history, humans have misused these elements of biospheres. The second important element is the history, that the food that we eat today is not what our ancestors ate 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Food systems have evolved over the century, and these changes have been influenced by different powers. For instance, the food or the food system that exists currently in this part of the world is probably influenced by the European powers. And they influenced our food systems and restructured them according to their own needs. And then another important element of food system is that human needs it for survival. We all need food to live, but it's not all about keeping our physiological systems going with food. It's more than that. It's about our identity. It's about our culture. It's about our religious beliefs. So, and then finally, this whole food system is run by a highly interconnected actors, starting from the producers to input suppliers to processors, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, consumers, policymakers, and workers. Now, I wish to move to my next slide and wish to discuss how it looks like in Karakoram, Himalaya, Pamir landscape. In high altitude Karakoram, Himalaya, Pamir landscape context, food systems are highly complex and integrated, and they highly depend on use of ecosystem services. They rely mainly on locally available inputs, mainly those available at the farm. For instance, they use home seeds, they use farmyard manures, and they use traditional methods of controlling the pests on their farms. And the cropping cropping systems, the cropping patterns are based on local consumption need and on traditional knowledge.
I'm
The
terribly sorry to
agrobiodiversity-
interrupt you, Milad, but could you share your screen? Your slides have not been shared. Thank you.
So from my side, it is showing that I'm sharing my slides. I will share them again.
Milad, now we can see.
You can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in high altitude, Karakoram, Hamaria, Pamir landscape, I was telling that the systems are highly complex and integrated, and they highly depend on use of ecosystem services. They rely on locally available inputs, such as home-saved seed, farmyard manure, and also the traditional methods of controlling pests. The cropping system and cropping patterns are based on local consumption needs and on traditional knowledge. Agrobiodiversity is high not only in the fields, but also in the food that they consume. People process fruit, vegetables, and dairy, but it's largely they use very basic methods, such as drying, salting, or sometimes storage in underground soil pits. The production is less integrated with farmer marketing channels or market demand. And eventually the same characteristics you can see in the actors that I earlier discussed, that the producers are smallholders, limited risk-taking, produce multiple crops and keep animals and poultry. Input suppliers are part-time suppliers. For example, a grocery shop in a village also sells seed and fertilizer. Processing is mainly home-based, and the objective is just to preserve certain crops for the lean season. Manufacturer distributors do not exist, and the retailers are mainly the small shopkeepers in the valleys, the consumers of whom are mainly the people from the village or few people who might visit these areas for tourism during the season, tourism season. Consumer, I would not call it consumer because consumer have some power over deciding what to eat, what not to eat based on their own purchase power. Most of the people here are sorry. Sorry. The next slide. And then if we look at the system overall, we see that there are changes which are happening in this system. First of all, that there is the emergence of market-based production system, in which food systems are shifting to few commercial. Reduction in processing losses and improved quality of production due to better access to processing technologies. And the dependence on external crop inputs is increasing. Similarly,
your slide has not shifted.
Okay, sorry. So some of the orphan crops are now getting importance, getting economic importance. Medicinal and aromatic plants, which had a local use, now have become high value business. and production from the small farms are now reaching the domestic and international markets. Out migration to diversify the income sources has increased, but at the same time, there have been some problems also. And the problem is that we see loss in the agro-biodiversity. We see that pastures are being overgrazed because of high demand of meat. We see that the youth are now moving out of agriculture because they are now more educated. Women economic opportunities have been increased, but at the cost of more workload for the women. And what are the key drivers? The key driver, first of all, is obviously population. Mountains have limited carrying capacity. And the second driver is infrastructure. We have seen a huge improvement in the infrastructure into these areas, bringing globalization into very remote villages. And as a result, livelihood preferences are changing. People are moving towards education, then getting into agricultural activities. Eating habits are changing. Climate change is another driver which is influencing the food systems. Government policies are also influencing both positively and negatively. NGO-led development interventions also impacting positively and negatively. And then there are also emerging opportunities such as tourism, which has become another important driver of economy. Now the question is, whatever is happening in these mountain areas, is it sustainable? So the answer is the people or the food systems in these mountain areas, they are also following the same path, which has brought challenges in other places. And another important thing is that the farmers have been pushed to engage in a food system that is catered for the high-end market. As a result, farmers have started producing for others and have forget themselves, their children, the evidence of which is serious increase in stunting rate in children across HKPL, which is over 40%. We need to develop local systems that meet the needs of the local population. They are more resilient. They should be more resilient to shocks, promote indigenous healthy diets, and make food systems more resilient. And they should be more efficient to water and energy. Now, I would also like to touch upon two very important sustainable development goals, which has a high relevance to food system. The first one is zero hunger. The target is that by 2030 will be the end of the hunger in the world. And this we want to achieve through food security, improving nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture. But it is not likely to be happening. Today, after all 5 years, 1 in every 9 on this earth go to bed hungry each night. There are rather more signs of increasing hunger and food insecurity, which is a warning that something is not going well on road towards a world with zero hunger. Second important SDG is SDG 2, which is about responsible production and consumption. We are not making much progress on these two globally. It is about achieving the sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources, reducing global food waste, and also encouraging food system actors to adopt sustainable practices, and which we all know that it's not happening. Finally, how to ensure sustainable food systems in HKPL? What is the way forward? First of all, we should acknowledge the importance of local knowledge. We should promote self-operating local food systems We should increase research and investment on suitable agro-technologies for tailored solution in high altitude areas. We should bring science into practice, and we should develop integrated suitable policies and improve cooperation and coordination between governments, people, and private sector. Thank you very much. My apologies for this problem with my throat. I was thinking that it will be okay because I started with the problem, but I hope I make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Milad, for those very important remarks. And I do hope you'll have some hot water and ease your throat. It's worrisome. So hoping that you're feeling better, and I'm sure there'll be some questions that will come from the audience about your presentation. I'd like to introduce now our next speaker, who is Dr. Amina Jahangir Rajput, and she is the program coordinator of the Central Asia Stunting Initiative for the Aga Khan Foundation. And if you could make your presentation on the challenge of malnutrition in high altitude mountains before and during COVID-19. Over to you, Dr. Rajput.
Thank you very much. Are you able to see my screen? I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, I can see it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so very much. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It is with great pleasure that I'll be presenting you some of the evidence, challenges, and learnings related to malnutrition in high altitude mountains in our program area before and during COVID-19. So have my slide moved to the next? I just want to recheck because I was stopping in the earlier presentation.
There seems to be a little bit of a delay, Dr. Rajput. I'm not seeing a change of slide. Excuse us for the technical issue just now. We're experiencing a small technical issue with the presentation of Dr. Amina Rajput, and she will, I'm sure, be joining us again in just a moment. It seems that she may have lost her connection. Dr. Rajput?
Are you able to see it now? I'm just trying to fix it.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, thank you. Please do proceed.
So are you able to see the current presentation?
Could you make it full screen, please? Yes, yes, very good.
Screen.
Now we're on the second slide. Yes, thank you, Dr. Rajput.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much. My apologies for this. So now looking at the data, in 2019, estimated 5.2 million children under 5 years died mostly from preventable and treatable causes. Children aged 1 to 4 years, basically, they accounted for almost 3.3 million of deaths, where the rest of the remaining deaths of almost 2.4 million, they took place in the newborn period, which is under the age of 31 month. Globally, infectious diseases like low respiratory tract infections, neonatal preterm birth complications, birth asphyxia, and trauma, diarrhea, malaria, these are still the leading causes of death in children under 5. But what is important to note is that the underlying cause of all these deaths, it's like 45% of these deaths in these children are linked with malnutrition. Now we'll see how this is happening. So are you able to see my next slide?
Yes, next slide has come. Thank you.
All right. So I'm sorry for this again. So now looking at the rates of stunting, wasting, and anemia among children in all the 4 countries, which are program countries, which basically Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan. Now, what we see is we have picked these 4 indicators, which are also being reported by the Global Nutrition report recently published. What we have seen that in last decade, there has been a decline in stunting, wasting, underweight, and anemia. However, the rates of stunting, wasting, and anemia among children have remained unacceptably high. These deficits alone or combined with other, in a combination, they actually lead to impaired growth and functioning of immune system, which is poor cognitive development, which consequently leads to poor educational outcomes, low productivity, and low adult wages. And when accompanied by excessive weight gain, it results later in the years into non-communicable diseases, which are also known as chronic diseases. The prevalence of these conditions in children are actually related with high number of mortality and morbidities. Children with any of these nutritional deficits are at a heightened risk of mortality. Multiple deficits have even much higher risk of this. Adverse outcomes and mortality risks are highest among children who are both stunted and wasted. And the risk of death increases as a child becomes more stunted and wasted. Severe wasting is usually highlighted as carrying the highest risk of death, which is 12 times more than a non-wasted or stunted child. Severe wasting also carries a higher risk of death, which is 5 times more likely to die than a non-wasted or stunted child. Similarly, for each 1 gram per DL decrease in hemoglobin, the risk of child death increases by 24%. Now we're looking at the diets of infants and young children, basically the children at the age of between 6 to 3 months, and also the children who are 0 to 6 months old. Infant and young child feeding practices, mainly complementary feeding practices between 6 months and 2 years of age, are found to be suboptimal in all the countries. And these actually emerge the weakest link in improving child nutrition outcomes in the 3 countries. We're looking at the minimal acceptable diet, and you can see that the data is really alarming for all the 3 countries, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan. And this minimum dietary diversity and minimum meal frequency, these are actually, they're the ones who feed into the minimum acceptable diet. So they serve as essential indicator to understand the diet adequacy pattern in children. Of children 6 to 23 months of age, this is a very low proportion of children. You can say hardly half of them in Afghanistan and less than half of them, like 20% and 40% in Tajikistan and Pakistan respectively. They are taking meals which are required at a minimum frequency. Similarly, the minimum dietary diversity, which is also a proxy indicator for intake of multiple micronutrients and that diversity of the children's diet, this is also very low. So altogether, these indicators show us that only 1 in 10 children eat a minimum acceptable diet, and this is reflected by only 3.5% of the children in Pakistan taking this minimum acceptable diet, whereas Tajikistan is for 9.3% and Afghanistan is only 15%. Now, if we look at the early initiation and exclusive breastfeeding, which are the indicators for children 0 to 6 months, I think the averages that we have for Pakistan and Afghanistan for exclusive breastfeeding are better than Tajikistan, and this indicator for global nutrition indicators, the target would be achieved. But for the early initiation, this is really low. Now, looking at the current slide, what I want to tell you is that, the poor diet is the #1 cause of poor health and death worldwide, not only in children, but also in adults, including men and women, and with similar patterns seen in nearly all parts of the world, including Central Asia. However, the situation is even worse in Central Asia. burden attributable to poor diet exceeds the burdens attributable to any of the traditional or other risks that were seen as initially as key risk factors for cardiovascular diseases like blood cholesterol or high blood pressure. Low intake of good quality food like the whole grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, omega-3, fiber, legumes, and then high content of sodium and processed meat, they actually result into 255 million disability-adjusted life years and 11 million deaths, which is actually makes the total 22% of all deaths because of all other causes globally. So, what I wanted to reflect is that Central Asia is at the most highest risk. The highest rates of diet-related cardiovascular diseases, deaths, and dailies were in Central Asia. Almost 40% of these deaths. And among those, even Pakistan in 2017 was observed that 60% of deaths because of the diet-related CVDs that take place in Pakistan. For decades, health system and clinicians, they both have focused on medical drug treatment, treating cholesterol and non-communicable diseases with some of these factors, based model of diseases that ignores fundamental causes such as poor diets and lifestyle. The consequences of this is now coming to us and evident in the form of global nutrition crisis that is now sweeping the world, including our region. So I just wanted to confirm if you're able to see my next slide.
Yes, they've been proceeding very nicely.
All right. I'm sorry. So now looking at specifically for the women of reproductive age, because the nutrition in women of reproductive age group is a public health challenge. And what we see is that rates of anemia in women underweight have barely changed. So if we look at the trends, in last 10 years, there has been a very slow progress on these indicators. But what has actually worrisome is that the indicators of diabetes and obesity and high blood pressure, they have actually gone up. What we call as the triple burden of disease. So currently all the countries, we are facing this triple burden of disease in women of reproductive age group, where we have multiple micronutrient deficiencies, high rate of anemia, and also at the same time the challenges of overweight and obesity, which are translating into high blood pressure and multiple blood pressure and diabetes. And Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, all of these countries, these are showing increase in last 5 to 10 years. Now, I just want to touch base on the drivers of undernutrition in mountain regions and what we have learned so far. So if we look at that, this is I'm showing currently the 2020 conceptual framework of the determinants of maternal and child nutrition. The last framework that we have was, the first framework, in fact, that we have was in 1990 UNICEF. So there's not much that has changed in the framework, except maternal nutrition has taken more importance. And what we see is that is a very positive development. It is the recognition of the intergenerational cycle of undernutrition. What we know is that preconceptual and intrapartum nutritional status of the mother is a major predictor of nutrition outcomes in children, especially maternal height, which may be linked to up to 40% of the burden of stunting in children. Primary drivers of undernutrition remain as nutritional intake and care, and there are very good evidence-based practices through which we can deal these issues. However, there are underlying causes, and these underlying causes, again, are household food insecurity, poor caring practices, care and simulation, and environment and household that contributes to disease and access to health and nutrition services. Important nutrition products and technologies are not available everywhere. The health workers who are specialize in nutrition or can support even the preventive services, they're even absent in many of the regions. Similarly, if we look at the food security, which as Milad was mentioning, is a single important driver of nutrition, and especially in the mountain areas, which are actually different from the challenges are different from the plains and are mostly related to inaccessibility, fragility, seasonality, limited economic opportunities, and poor market access. In addition, hard biophysical conditional, natural resource degradation, and climate change play an important role. What is also needs to be considered is the policy environment in these regions. And because there's inadequate policy and institutional support, so the budgetary allocations for nutrition specifically have always remained low. The budgets that we have for any of these countries for nutrition are actually a minuscule portion of the national or the regional budgets. And of course, finally, the poor coordination with other sectors. We're now looking at the countries in the region that are on track for achieving all the global nutrition targets. What we see is that none of the countries in the region are on track achieving these targets. These targets have been set by the World Health Assembly on maternal, infant, and young child nutrition, and also on diet-related NCDs. These were adopted in 2025. The 2025 Global Nutrition Targets include targets which are for birth weight, reduction of anemia in women of reproductive age, reduction in the number of children under 5 who are stunted, increase in childhood overweight, increase in exclusive breastfeeding, and reduce and maintain childhood wasting to less than 5%. What we see is that all the countries are going to achieve only 2 of these 6 indicators, with Tajikistan being on track for reducing stunting and no increase in childhood overweight, and Pakistan on track for exclusive breastfeeding and no increase in. Just confirming that I moved the next slide, and can you see it?
Yes, it can be seen, yes.
All right. So now we're looking at the 4 targets, which are actually related with the non-communicable diseases and NCD indicators in adults, which are salt intake, raised blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. We have seen that all diet-related NCD indicators are at alarming levels, as I just show you some of the data from the countries. And there's the projected probability that any of those targets being close to 0 for achievement by end of 2025. Countries are not prepared to fight both sides of the malnutrition at the same time. And we have also seen that in past, the focus has only been on undernutrition. Even that was not completely addressed. But this emerging global crisis is going to actually put more burden on the country's health system. So reversing the obesity epidemic, a diet-related disease, would lessen the burden on our health systems, as obesity not only one of the costly health conditions, I would say, but also a risk of COVID-19 hospitalizations and complications. So finally, getting close to my conclusion, there's a real risk that as nations try to control the virus, the gains that we have made in reducing hunger and malnutrition will be lost. So there has been lost just because of some of the implications that COVID-19 had on our health systems and our economic and food systems. So this is just some evidence that I've gathered from the Global Nutrition Report, which was released just in the this year during the COVID-19 period, and also from the recent evidence that has been published in many of the journals. So the economic, food, and health systems disruptions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic are expected to continue to exacerbate all types of malnutrition. COVID-19 has really exposed the diet and health systems, and which were already stressed by increasing climate extremities. Containing the virus has caused food and nutrition shortages and driven governments to reduce also the social services. So many of the cash transfer programs and other school programs where feeding was being supplied to children, they have closed. In the context of food and nutrition shortages, accessibility and affordability have become a major problem, and sustainability issues have also emerged. So thousands of households which were initially maybe food secure, they are now moving to the food insecurity. Level of hunger and malnutrition could double, and this is what the evidence says. We are also seeing the data coming from the field from all the other countries that these numbers are really going up, and the same is being reported by the information systems in the country. What I want to highlight is that, you know, the undernourished people have weaker immune systems and may be at a greater risk of COVID-19. due to illness. At the same time, their poor metabolic health, including obesity and diabetes, strongly linked to worse COVID-19 outcomes, hospitalization and death. On the other hand, people who were living with vulnerabilities like children and women belonging from the poor households, and women who families were living in conflict or unsheltered, they are going to suffer the most because 30 to 50% of the essential health services, they have been disrupted in addition to the nutrition services. So where women are not able to get their regular routine antenatal and delivery self-scale birth attendance. So there's a high chance that there will be increased child mortality. In addition, the wasting can go up to as 14% if the situation is not dealt with. So this is my final slide. And have you seen? Can you see it now? The critical actions to end malnutrition.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So there has been a lot of discussions and recent reports and evidence that is coming up that how the situation can be improved and what are the critical actions to stop further deteriorating the situation, which is actually happening at the moment. So the most important is tap the window of opportunity where the most gains are, and which means to act in the first 18 months of life. Evidence suggests that the interventions which are focused during the first 18 months of life are the ones which are actually very effective in reducing stunting and wasting and child malnutrition. So that pre-conceptual period and the first year of life, that is very, very important. The Global Nutrition Report has also given some recommendations, which are like the actions which should be done, should be adopted by the government, the civil society, and business community for more equitable progress towards ending malnutrition. So it highlights the way forward as strengthened coordination, alignment, financing, and accountability. Building equitable, resilient, and sustainable food and health systems to ensure that everyone has access to healthy, affordable food and quality nutrition care. The second thing which is important is expanding financing, because the budgets for and allocations for nutrition are already very low. So it's really important that we have more resources for that, and crucially for addressing stunting, wasting, and micronutrient deficiencies. In addition to that, funding for diet-related chronic diseases and direct resources and programs to communities and populations who are affected the most. The fourth one is basically focus on joint efforts by engaging and mobilizing all sectors. So that multi-sectoral approach is really, really important to act now and target the most in the need, as well as considerable investment in data systems and progress where we are going and what needs to be done. So that has to be an iterative process. And finally, leverage key moments to renew and expand our commitments and strengthen accountability to monitor pledges and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajput. Some heartbreaking statistics about the malnutrition of children. So we'll move on to our next speaker, and I invite participants to write their questions in the chat box, and we'll also have time for discussion after all four speakers have completed their remarks. So we'll move now to our speaker from FAO Pakistan, who is the nutrition and gender focal person there, Dr. Amina Anis. Dr. Anis, over to you.
Thank you so much, Laurie. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your video. Do you have slides to share?
Yeah, I have. Yes. So I think you can see my slides.
Not quite yet. It can take a moment to load, but please do, yes, share your screen.
Yeah, I have done it. So my topic is arising opportunities and role of institutions for sustainable food and nutrition security in mountain areas, and looking it through the gender lens. So first of all, I would like to congratulate EC Mode for organizing this webinar and bringing the different partners on board, and especially from FAO side. It's really heartening to hear from all the presenters. And when we consider the food security, we say that when food is available throughout the year for everyone, and it is accessible, it is available, and it is properly utilized. But we need to see it from the also from the household perspective. And
Dr. Anis, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're not seeing your slides. Could you share again?
Just a moment.
Apologies for the interruption. Thank you.
Is it visible now?
I think it's just loading now. Yes, now it is visible. If you could make it full screen. Thank you.
Okay. So normally we see food security from a national perspective, but we need to go and look into the household food security perspective also, because maybe in a country like Pakistan, where you have got the national food security, the households, it's not a guarantee that the households are as food secure. So and each household and within it, each member should have access to safe, nutritionally acceptable and culturally acceptable food. But many a times it is not the case, and we are seeing this situation in Pakistan, especially in the Balochistan areas, in the Sindh area, and also in the mountain areas. And hunger and food insecurity can exist at the household level, even when at the national level we have got the enough food. So we need to see food security from the bigger perspective. I think also the previous speakers have talked about the SDGs, and there are 6 sustainable goals that are related to food and nutrition security. Poverty is a very important component. We need to see the second SDG, which is on zero hunger, on the good health, clean water and sanitation.
I'm terribly sorry to interrupt again, but your slides are not shifting. Could you put the slides in full screen mode?
Yeah, they are already in the full screen mode. But it's saying that your network is causing poor call quality. That is the...
Yes, these are some of the technological difficulties. I think you might have to unshare and share again, because we're seeing we're not seeing the presentation mode.
Okay.
Laurie, can I share her slide? I have it with me.
Would that be more convenient for you, Dr. Anis?
I think so. That will be better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sushmita, please go ahead and share the presentation. Thank you.
Can I start now?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Yeah. So the overview is like out of the 795 million people who are globally undernourished, 52% of them reside in the Hindu Kush countries. And food and nutrition insecurity remains a serious challenge in the Hindu Kush regions, and where around 30% of the population, it suffers from food insecurity. And as much as around 50% of the women, they suffer from malnutrition as well as their children. So this situation is quite affecting the women and children. And when we consider the food security and nutrition, we need to have a holistic point of view. And the causes of the food and nutrition insecurity, they are normally multifaceted and very complex. And within the mountain areas, they have a lot of challenges, which I will discuss in the later slides. There is also changing dietary habits, and we are more having a kind of an urbanized dietary habits rather than having our holistic and the local village dietary habits. So that is also causing a problem. Next slide, please. Yeah. So within these mountain regions, we know that there is a harsh biophysical conditions, and climate change is affecting a lot. And Pakistan is like sixth most country which is on the facing this climate change challenges. So and there is deteriorating local food systems. People are taking more into the urbanized diets and urbanized food systems rather than local food systems. And there are limited economic opportunities, especially for the women in those areas. And market access is not normally many a times there. And they have like weak communication and poor transportation systems, and which makes the food prices very high at times. And and the people do not have the purchasing power to buy that food, and this then they suffer from this household food and nutrition insecurity. Then there is also there are problems with the water resources and irrigation systems. It is mostly rain-fed system, and they're not the newer innovative systems they have been taken up, or storage sites or ponds have been created and reservoirs for storage of water. So that is affecting the food and nutrition security and agriculture. And people are leaving the agriculture for more competitive kind of sources of livelihoods, and particularly the youth. They are shifting from the normal agriculture to to having jobs, doing jobs and migration. So that is affecting the food and nutrition security in these mountainous regions. Policy and institutional support is another area which is very much affected. And but like these days, like there are some institutional mechanisms that are being developed. One is the scaling up nutrition, and that secretariat has been developed at the country level, at the Islamabad level, and also in the provincial levels. And that is trying to integrate all the different sectors which could work on the food security and nutrition areas. Next slide, please. So the key messages which I would like to give is that the national governments, they need to pay special attention to integrating a mountain perspective into the national policies, because one thing that works for the plain areas that might not be feasible for the mountainous areas. And we need to consider the mountainous terrains and the difficulties the people are facing there, and the kind of the disasters, frequent disasters that are coming there into our food and nutrition policies. Adopting a holistic approach that includes revitalizing the local food systems. Local food systems should also be taken care of, and local diets, they are for that seasons, and they have that potential to provide good nutrition support to the people. So they should also consider revitalizing the local food systems and considering those recipes, traditional recipes that are full of nutrition, and they should take care in their diet. And strengthening the social safety nets. BIS program is working, and it's providing support to women. And around 1 million women are registered under this program. And it's also catering the needs of the, now there is it's a shift in this program, and they're catering the needs of the pregnant and lactating women also. So that would improve the nutrition and food security for the vulnerable women, and especially those who are also suffering from poverty. Nutrition awareness is very important, and in this regard, FAO Pakistan has developed Pakistan Dietary Guidelines for Better Nutrition, and we have developed the e-learning courses as well on nutrition, food safety, and gender, particularly considering the context of Pakistan. So it's getting a lot of praise, and it's being putting into the curriculum of the universities. So I think the different partners can also consider using these dietary guidelines while preparing their projects or planning their programs. And diversified livelihood options are really important. And we need to also focus on the non-farming sectors, including the tourism, which has a lot of potential. And the current Prime Minister is also focusing on tourism, and that would improve the kind of economic power and purchasing power of those households. So that would improve the food and nutrition security. Next, please. Shusmita, please turn on the next slide. There is a slide in between, I think. Yes, yes. The other key messages are increasing the productivity of the traditional crops, but sticking more towards the multi-cropping rather than shifting towards the single cropping patterns, because when you do the multi-cropping, you can have your vegetables in there, you can have your staple foods over there, you can have your fruits and some herbs you can get. So multi-cropping is good for these mountainous terrains, and working on having some kind of good quality breeds of livestock is important, and development of the non-forest of the non-timber forest products is important, and medicinal and aromatic plants, which is like a very good capacity of these mountainous regions, and we can use them for improving their economic empowerment, especially for the women. Organic agriculture is also very important, and that should be focused in these areas, and people should be having their own vegetable gardens or community gardens, also having their kind of the poultry for which could suffice the need of these households, and then increasing investment from the government side as well as from the private sector, NGOs. We need to increase the investments in the management of the natural resources and prevent this overgrazing of these areas, and preventing soil degradation, water loss, and providing good sources, cheaper sources of energy is very critical to increase the agriculture production and diversify these local food systems, and definitely overall improving nutrition. Next, please. Special attention needs to be given to the women and children, and empowering the women for improving their knowledge and their control over resources is very important, so that they can have their own decision-making power, and they can have improve the health of the family, and provide education for the children, and good feeding. Then strengthening the child care, nutrition kind of services is very important, and considering the nutritional patterns of food preparation, which are suitable for these traditional Himalayan areas, and utilizing those fermented foods and which are nutritionally rich and healthy. Then establishing the community food banks is another area, and that should be done especially at the village levels. And for example, we are hit by this COVID-19, and this also there is also a need that these community food systems, they are integrated and they are improved, so that the people can suffice their food and dietary needs from the local food systems rather than relying on the markets and the cities. So thank you from my side. This was all about my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anis, for that presentation and some practical solutions. I'd like to move now to our fourth speaker for the event, Chief Economist here at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, Dr. Ghulam Rasool. Dr. Rasool, if you could turn on your video and share your slides and unmute your mic.
Thanks, Lodi. I am trying to share my slides. Is it coming? My slides are okay.
Yes, they're just loading now.
Okay, loading. Oh, sorry, I probably created some problem. Is it loading or I don't know?
I think you'll have to do it again.
I have to do it again. Okay. Can you see? Oh, no.
Yes, yes, they'll slowly load. Yes, if you could put it in full screen in the presentation mode.
Okay.
Yes,
Is it
thank
there?
you. Thank you.
Oh, it is there now.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Lodi. Thank you very much. And I appreciate very much. I listened very carefully. All the speakers, it's very exciting. And here, me and Avid will try to look at the food water energy nexus from a landscape approach and from a regional cooperation. So I would like to welcome everybody, very warm welcome to our presentation. And we'll be focusing here three broad aspects of the nexus. Particularly, we look at what are the key food, water, and energy nexus challenges in the HKPL region. And then we look at that why food, water, energy nexus approach is important for HKPL and how the nexus approach can help to manage food, water, energy security at HKPL more sustainable way. So let us first look at that. All of you know that the mountain area and the HKPL we are talking about, I think this is one of the world's most difficult terrain. So high altitude, cold, dry, semi-arid, semi-arid to arid climate, and biophysical condition is very adverse for producing food, even for living there. And there is very limited agricultural land in the HKPL. Most of the land is not suitable for intensive agriculture, and their productivity also most of the cases low, except some barely because of biophysical condition, weather condition, all that. And water resources also are unreliable. Irrigation also very poor and weak. But on the other hand, if you look at that, population is growing very fast in all the three countries, including the HKPL. Population growth in Afghanistan, Tajikistan, even Pakistan is very, very high. And because population is growing, demand is for food, water, energy is growing, and tension between energy, water, and irrigation is growing very much. And that is why probably we need more look to the nexus approach. If we could look at that, particularly my previous speaker talked about the food insecurity and vulnerability. If you look at that, even Afghanistan, almost every 1 in 2 people are food insecure, and particularly children, and 41% of the children are malnourished and very acutely malnourished, and particularly even certain pocket area like Badakhshan province in Afghanistan or Upper Chitral district of Pakistan, the malnourishment even higher and food insecurity even higher even there. Even in Tajikistan, where situation is relatively better, but still in rural areas, almost 70% households are food insecure. It's very scary, and 26% of children are malnourished, and 10% are very acute malnourished. And Pakistan, again, 35% people are food insecure, and 37% of children are malnourished. If you look at some socioeconomic challenges, if you look at the per capita water withdrawal, already Afghanistan is water scarce, and Pakistan is, if you look at the 1,030 cubic meter per person, this is the already water stress and going to water scarce. And Tajikistan little bit better, but they are also going water stress. And if you look at the population access to safe drinking water, it's very scary. Afghanistan only 55% people have access to safe drinking water. Pakistan little bit better. Tajikistan also not very good. And of course, irrigation is limited, except Pakistan. Tajikistan is very limited, and in Afghanistan 2.6. Actually, it was earlier more. It was more than 3 million hectares. Now it is going down there, and per capita land also low. So water stress is growing. This is the data. Sorry for giving here Bangladesh here. But if you look at the Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, Tajikistan, sorry, I don't have data here now. You can look at that from 1962 to 2017, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China and India, and per capita water availability is going down very severely. Now look at energy. Energy is very critically important. We have not heard much of the energy of the today talk, but you know, particularly high mountain area, energy you need for survival. Also energy you need for your food and nutrition. Without energy, you cannot survive in high mountain. In Afghanistan, actually, majority of the people don't have access to electricity, and 66% of the household using biomass for cooking, all that. Even Tajikistan, where they have a lot of hydropower resources, still 70% people suffer from extensive shortage of during the winter, and winter is critically important for Tajikistan. Winter is so severe, and winter severity without water is difficult to survive. And Pakistan, 78% household use biomass for cooking. And because of shortage of energy and lack of energy in high mountain area, particularly there are fruits and nuts, lot of in the fruits and nuts, even 20 to even some cases 30-40% of the fruits are lost in the during the post-harvest period. Now look at climate change. Climate change is affecting every part of the world, but that is affecting very badly our HKPL. It is changing the temperature regime totally, and temperature change is higher in this HKPL region comparison to other region, and that is accelerating the changing the snowfall pattern and the rainfall pattern, and particularly mountain area. It is, you know, snowfall is their lifeline, because without snow they cannot grow any crops. Snow water is basically coming from the snow, and snowfall is more important than even glacier, because glacier melting mostly go the river runoff and going the downstream, but snowfall is the very important for the mountain people for their even drinking water and also agriculture and livestock. And because of early and rapid snowfall, that snow melt, it leads to flood in during the winter, and as well as it lead to the poor water availability during the growing season, when in the summer season when farmers need water for crop. And dry period is increasing, drought is increasing, all of the HKPL and HKH region, and the variability of rainfall and snow melt affecting irrigation and food production very badly. And because of climate change, glacier and springs are the main source of all even drinking water, many part of the high mountain area in the HKPL. And this, it is reported that about 50% of the spring have been dried up in upper Indus there. I believe the similar situation will be Tajikistan, also Pamir and Karakoram. And rural households are facing acute shortage of drinking water in many high mountain areas. Even it is reported that some part of the high mountain area in Balochistan and other for high mountain area, even rural settlement villages are relocating because of shortage water or disaster coming from the climate change. So that all ultimately threatening the agriculture and food security in the mountain area and as well as downstream area. As we say that glacier and snow melt is lifeline for agriculture. And basically glacier melt and snow melt water contribute to 60 to 80% of the water supply for irrigation in the high mountain area. In fact, without irrigation in Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and some part of Pakistan, there is no possibility of doing any agriculture because of they are so arid and dry. So irrigation is the main source of, and the glacier and snow is the main source of irrigation. And 70 to 80% cultivated land is fully dependent on irrigation. Without irrigation and good rainfall, snow melt, there is no agriculture. And particularly livestock and high mountain people, livestock is their part of farming system. And not all that, livestock is the main source of even nutrition as well as part of the livelihood sources and food and nutrition sources. And pasture and livestock also depend heavily on the snow melt condition. So because of that irrigated area, while population is growing, demand for food in growing, irrigated area in Afghanistan declining and quite fast. And similar situation is also reporting from Tajikistan. Now question comes, why the Nexus approach? So Nexus approach is a system-wide approach. So this provides a framework to look at the food, water, energy in a systematic way, not only growing food, rather than looking the food, water, and nexus together and maximizing the synergy and minimizing the trade-off in a sustainable way, in a natural way, so that ultimate product well-being of the people increases. And nexus thinking is gaining very importance, rooted particularly the silo approaches taken by the government for particular one sector, and they need that there is need more integrated solution for improving both food, nutrition, water, energy solution. And because of silo approaches and particular focus on certain sector and water and energy use in agriculture has increased tremendously, particularly agrochemicals, insecticide, pesticide also increased tremendously. That has caused huge damage for environment, ecosystem health, as well as affecting the human health, all that. So all this now, it is land, water, energy resources are coming under unprecedented pressure and challenges all over the world, including our HKH region, and that is why global water use has been increasing at twice the rate of population growth. Even this region in Afghanistan, 98% of the fresh water withdrawal is used for agriculture. In Tajikistan also is now 92% of the water is for agriculture. And Pakistan, this is also almost 94 or 95%. So there is a growing concern about the sustainability of food, water, energy resources and the planetary health. And because of that, now it is considered the Nexus approach can contribute tremendously in sustainable development and as well as managing resources more efficient and optimal ways. So Nexus approach to look at the interdependence of particularly these three sectors, water, energy, food. All you know that this land, water, energy are very integrated. If we want to grow food, we need land, we need water, we also need energy. And not only that, they can also complement each other. Agriculture contributes energy and bioenergy. Good agriculture practices can conserve watershed as well as good water management can reduce the demand for water and energy. So they are very linked, interlinked there. And policy of one sector also can support another sector or create problem for another sector. So if we look at that now, nexus we normally look at from the point of view of the horizontal integration, interlinkage of the water, energy, food, three sector. But nexus also can be looked at the basin level, river basin level, upstream, downstream linkages. And here probably we want to highlight particularly in the HKPL, because if you look at the HKPL situation, HKPL is the source of the all major rivers, all major water coming from the HKPL. But if you look at this water going down and producing food in the downstream region. So if there is no upstream downstream linkages, and HKPL or high mountain area cannot produce enough food or give enough nutrition to their population, because their biophysical condition is not actually support for intensive agriculture practices. Just want to give a for of the upper Indus basin. If you look at that, all Indus, if you look at that, western rivers and eastern rivers. So how all their water are coming from? Their major water sources is coming from basically the high mountain areas of the upper Indus. Just look at one example of Tarbela Dam. In this Tarbela Dam, 70% of water coming from contribute from the glacier and snowmelt water for the high mountain area. And if Tarbela Dam, if you can say, if we say that Tarbela Dam is again lifeline for Pakistan, probably it will not be wrong, because Tarbela Dam irrigates 9 million hectares of land of Indus Basin, and it produces over 3,000 megawatt of energy. So you can imagine that similarly, if you look at the other Mongla Dam, and now other dam are coming, and similarly, if you look at the India also, all many dams are coming under the Robi, Bias, and Sutlej, Nangal barrage, all these actually contributing significantly to the food and nutrition security of the downstream. So, but the waters are coming from the upstream. So if we don't look at the upstream downstream nexus and linkages, probably mountain people cannot get. And that is why as water is a fresh water ecosystem coming from mountain. So mountain people should deserve recognition, these services, ecosystem services, and compensation, and cooperation between upstream, downstream, as mountain, as like HKPL is good in water and energy resources. Plain area is good for agriculture and food production. So if there is a cooperation, that really help to sustainable development of food, water, and nexuses. I would like to give another example from again Indus Basin. Again, just here, if you look at that, how many economic infrastructure are depending on the upstream water and glacier melt water from there. If you look at this, so for the Basha Dam, Mongla Dam, and Tarbela Dam, all these dams, ultimately, these are the lifeline for Pakistan. This is the all economic and agriculture and water security, energy security, all is coming, and this water coming from the high mountain areas, all that. So this is the major economic contribution coming from the high mountain area to the lowland areas and that. So there is an opportunity to collaborate between high and upstream areas and downstream area. And similarly, there is a huge opportunity for collaboration, probably, for example, like Indus River Basin. Is the Kabul River is contributing significantly to the Tarbela Dam and Indus River water supply. So if there is a cooperation between Afghanistan and Pakistan and can be developed water resources cooperatively, that can contribute and benefit both upstream and downstream considerably and address the challenge of food, water, energy security. Just another example, I'm going here beyond this. look at the Indus and Gangas, if you look at that, so in Indus basin, about 130 million farmers in the Indo Gangas and Brahmaputra basin directly depend on the snow and glacier melt for their livelihood, food and nutrition security for the upstream water and ecosystem services, particularly glacier and snow melt water. And if you look at the even downstream, even I think going down to even Bangladesh benefited from there. If you look at Gangas basin, so about 1 billion people in the Indo-Gangetic basin depend directly, indirectly on the snow and glacier melt water from the upper mountain area. So now my last slide is that how Nexus approach can help. So important is that NEPRAC Nexus approach look at the how we can maximize synergies. As all you know, the water is a liquid resources, and it can be both conjunctive and non-conjunctive uses, and water flows from upstream to downstream. And when water flows, it can generate multiple benefit if we wise them wisely. For example, if I can give example, let's say Kabul River Basin. Kabul River Basin, there is a huge hydropower potential, quite substantial hydropower potential, but not exploited at all at this moment. But if there is a joint development Kabul River Basin, so there is let's say there is a storage dam and energy production in upper Kabul River Basin that can benefit the Afghanistan, and at the lower part it can irrigate many land. Even if this water can contribute also Pakistan for irrigation. So same water can generate hydropower and then contribute to downstream for irrigation and other purposes. As you know that hydropower is not a consumptive use of water, it is a non-consumptive use of water. So same water we can be used multiple ways. Similarly, we need to look at now not only for single purpose for either irrigation or for only energy. Probably we need to manage water both for multiple purposes. For food production, same water can be used producing energy, producing food, as well as even sometimes navigation. So if we can use multiple purposes and multiple ways water, that can enhance our synergies considerably and reduces trade-off between water, energy, food nexus. So that is why multi-purpose use and cooperative management of water energy can really contribute significantly to the society to address water, energy, as well as economy. One good example from our Eastern Himalaya countries coming from Bhutan and India. Bhutan and India is collaborative developments of energy, hydropower, and that has contributed significantly now energy security of the region. And now even Bangladesh is now interested to part of that invest in Bhutan so that they can also get clean energy from Bhutan or Nepal. So similar situation we can see Amudarya, we can see in Kabul River Basin and many other river basins can be developed jointly and contribute significantly to food, water, energy nexus. And probably we need to build infrastructure and storage capacities, both natural as well as man-made infrastructure. Example is again Afghanistan. Afghanistan has quite good water resources, but because of poor infrastructure, people don't have access to the energy, and particularly in mountain area, rivers are going through the flow through the very low, and housing settlements are up. If you don't have infrastructure, you cannot use the water for people. So that is why we need to also storage water. If water flow through the river and we cannot use them because of no infrastructure, that is not much useful. So we need a huge storage and infrastructure development so that water can be used for irrigation, for food production, for energy, as well as drinking water and sanitation. That is very important. All Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Pakistan, water and sanitation and drinking water is extremely poor. We need to do that. And finally, we need to look at that upstream, downstream linkages. ecosystem services and develop a mechanism for sharing benefit to each other so that both upstream and downstream can be benefited through the development and management of water, energy, food resources. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ghulam Rasool. Thank you for your remarks, and I'd like to ask the indulgence of the audience. We've gone a bit over our schedule, and we've had some difficulty with a little bit of technical hiccups here and there. But if you could stay with us, because we've got some great questions and we'd like to have a discussion. We've also got our Director General of ICIMOD, who has been listening to the presentations, and I would like to invite now Dr. Pema Jamsho, who is the Director General of ICIMOD, to address the gathering. If you could, Dr. Jamsho, could you put your video on, please?
Okay, can you see me? My video is on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lori Vasily. And as you mentioned, I have been listening with much interest to all these speakers. I think this is a very, very interesting subject area. I'm at the onset, I'm sorry that I could not make it in time to deliver a few opening remarks, but my colleague Farid has aptly covered that section. So thank you very much, and I found the presentations very, very interesting. I've listened to Dr. Melat Karim on food security in the Hindu Kush, Karakoram, Pamir landscape system, and all the challenges that we are facing, the opportunities that are there in terms of improving the food and nutrition security in the region. Then, of course, I also listened to Dr. Amina Rajput's presentation on the nutrition security related to stunning and all the malnourishment issues, challenges, and also the drivers of undernourishment and so on. Very interesting topic. And I think you have brought up very clearly the challenges that are posed now by COVID-19, and this is also an area that we all need to look much deeper. Moving on, I also listened to Dr. Nomina Anis' presentation on the gender and nutrition aspects, and I think that's also very, very relevant in our context, because many of the issues relate to the inequity in terms of access to resources, also in terms of access to control over resources and so on. So this is again very important, and you have touched on the importance of also looking at the non-timber forest products like medicinal plants, as well as diversification with tourism and so on. And I think the interesting fact was the establishment of food banks. The COVID-19 has really disrupted the food supply chain of food and other commodities. Now, if you take one example, at one time there was a rush, a lot of hoarding and stockpiling, and other time there is also the other way, trying to dispose of the stockpiled goods and food commodities. So it has disrupted the whole supply chain and so on, and also the distortion in prices and so on. So that has a big impact. And I really found my colleague, Dr. Ghulam Rasool's the presentation on the food, water, energy nexus and how he highlighted the importance of upstream, downstream linkages, and that upstream areas provide water and energy resources, and downstream areas convert that into food, and I would add shelter and fiber as well. So the linkage between upstream, downstream, we got out very clearly, and we need to give more attention in terms of promoting cooperation between these two. But I would like to, I don't want to take too much time. I would like to say that Aga Khan Foundation has been a very important partner of ICIMOD. And although I joined ICIMOD recently as the new Director General, I was involved in ICIMOD way back from the early 2000s and so on. So during that time, I had the opportunity to also meet and work closely with the professionals from Aga Khan Foundation, particularly in Pakistan with Natural Resources RSP and the Natural Resources Management Program. And also the opportunity to see some of the works up in Gilgit. So I'm very familiar with Aga Khan's work, and I hope that in the coming years, we could work closely together and enhance our cooperation in this field. I would like to finally say that ICIMOT is very much committed to taking forward the partnership, taking forward the collaboration in addressing food, energy, water security in our region, in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, and also in promoting our partnership with Aga Khan Foundation, with FAO, as well as our country partners in both Afghanistan and Pakistan. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking time. I found this very, very, very useful session. Thank you. Over to you. Back to you, Laurie.
Thank you, Dr. Jamsho. Very happy to have you here in this webinar event this evening. We have got quite a number of questions that are coming from the audience, and we won't be able to address all of them at this time, but please do reach out individually to the speakers, and I'll ask our speakers to put on your video. And our first question, if I could direct it to you, Milad, it comes from Vicky Johnson of the University of the Highlands and Islands, who has asked about youth agency in supporting food security and families. Could you address that question for us, Milad? Over to you.
Sorry, I did not fully get the question. What was the question? Who is supporting?
The question is about youth, the role of youth in supporting food security and families.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is very important with the mountain communities, that youth are seen as the future for the family, and obviously youth grow with that burden of making the life of their families better than the one they lived. So, but the challenge with the mountain economies, and especially these high altitude areas, is that there are a number of natural factors which make it very difficult for young people to kind of pursue the dreams that they have been growing with. Eventually, what happens that, and in this, to some extent, education is a support for them, but in other cases, even good health is a support for them. But they go outside the mountain areas to make a livelihood for themselves. And those who become very successful, they then create a lot of impact on the places from they had originated, especially when this money start coming into these families. So in most of the cases, this money is then used for the reasons which can then, to some extent, not support the ecological systems that we want to function, sustainably. For instance, all of a sudden, one of the impact is the change in the land use. People, instead of, people start building something in the middle of the field where they have been growing wheat. So there is another type of youth who, for whatever reason, whether because of a social or economic, who still remain in that system, they are the people who actually then become custodians of what their families are transferring to them. But again, another challenge here is that these young people are not doing it with all the interest that their elders have been doing. So that is another challenge that we are seeing for the sustainability of these ecologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Milad. Yes, indeed, especially now in light of the COVID pandemic, we see a lot of reverse migration, youth returning to mountain communities. So engaging them productively, will be an important focus going into the future. So another question that's come from Amjad here in the question and answer area, I'll direct to our colleague from FAO Pakistan, Dr. Nomina Anis. This, of course, relates to gender, but is a more general trend as well. And our audience member, Amjad, has asked about outmigration, tourism development, and land use change, land being used for commercial purposes that may have previously been agricultural. So it's very pronounced in the mountain regions of Pakistan, but of course across the region. So Amjad then asks, how can we ensure food security and food supply chain in these regions? Dr. Anis, if you could answer that question. And then I know our colleague from ICIMOD, Dr. Abid Hussain, had also worked on these issues in a recently released paper from ICIMOD, COVID-19 policy paper from ICIMOD. So if I could ask you to answer, Dr. Anis, and then also Dr. Abid, if you have anything to add. Could you turn on your video, Dr. Anis?
My video is on.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. So definitely it's an out-migration is definitely an increasing trend, and mostly these are men who are out-migrating. And this is affecting the women a lot, and also the elderly people, because these are the ones who are going to stay in these communities. So there is a lot of pressure on these women. They have to take care of their families. They have to take care of the household needs. They have to perform outside activities, including agriculture, and they find a lot of difficulties while getting agriculture inputs and having market access. So in this regard, I think there is a need to sensitize these village and rural communities a lot, because regarding the importance of having the local food production systems more sustainable and active. And for example, they could have and the agencies like us, we are providing them with better qualities of seeds, better qualities of fruits, trees, and all those stuff, and also providing them with kind of opportunities like tunnel farming, and establishing the community gardens. So where the community women, they come up and they establish these things. So I think there is a lot of potential for women in these areas. When they have enough or surplus amount, they also try to sell it to the cities, and they come up to Islamabad and they sell their products there. So we need to enhance the kind of importance, the kind of economic benefits that the youth and the women, they can get out of the food and nutrition, and going to having some agriculture aspects as well.
Thank you, Dr. Anis. Yes, very important to focus on women and children. Dr. Abid Hussain, do you have anything you might like to add in light of this COVID situation? The crisis of food security is even greater in mountain areas. And then, of course, the impact on tourism, which is critically important for mountain areas. Could you come in, Dr. Abid Hussain?
Yes, thank you so much, Laurie. So there are two types of trade-offs in the light of these three aspects mentioned by Amjad: out-migration, tourism, and development purpose, commercial land for the development purposes. One is first trade-off between quantity of food and quality of food. Another trade-off is dependence on local food systems, local diverse production versus the dependence on external food items. Revival and strengthening of local food systems is very important in mountain areas for sustainable food and nutrition security. If we switch, for example, out migrants are coming back bringing new dietary habits, and tourism is commercialized and urban areas are expanding, of course dietary habits will happen, and from local diverse nutritious food items there will be shift towards narrow range of food items. So it will result in an increased dependence on external food items. Why in mountain areas local food systems are important? For example, in case of hazards, in case, for example, landslide, floods, gloves and all that, if physical connectivity is broken, even in mountain areas, people have have purchasing power, they will not be able to purchase food items coming from downstream areas. Number one. Another thing, for nutrition and health aspect of food and nutrition security, diverse nutritious food items are very important. There is trade-off, but we have to strengthen local food system, keep the balance between commercialization, tourism, or changing dietary habits because of out-migration and local food systems. So there should be more focus on strengthening local food systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abid Hussain. Yes, and that balance is exactly what another of our audience members is asking about in terms of the balance between the food, energy, and water needs of mountain people and the conservation needs of the ecosystem. So I wonder, Dr. Ghulam Rasool, if you might, because you've just spoken about this WEF nexus, and one of our audience members, Babar Khan, has asked about the balance between those needs of water, food, and energy for mountain people over and against, conserving the ecosystem. So, Dr. Ghulam Rasool, could you address that question for us?
Okay, thank you, Lori. It's a very nice question. Thank you very much, Babar Shab. Actually, the food, water, energy, and ecosystem nexus is very well integrated. Actually, because of shortage of time, I could not explain in this. Basically, if you look at that, mountain ecosystem contribute directly, not only water and many other ecosystem, and that sustain our food production and food production. So sustaining ecosystem services is critically important. If we damage ecosystem, that time, long time, sustainability will go. So that is why we need to look at that. We need to produce in such a way so that our food production, energy production don't affect the natural ecosystem and environment, and particularly biodiversity, freshwater ecosystem, terrestrial and water ecosystem. So this is very important. I have a couple of other questions I saw in the question. Should I go through them? I think number of questions directly asked me. Should I go?
Yes, I'm sorry, we have very limited time, Dr. Rasool.
Yeah, but so, I see somebody is patiently writing number of questions. Let me touch quickly. I'll be very, very brief. It's like
yes,
that.
Please do be just 2 minutes, Dr. Rasool. Thank you.
2 minutes. Okay. One of the first questions somebody asked that, okay, to make a HKH, how to make HKH demilitarized? And there is another question, how political tension increases climate situation. I will take this question together. Actually, of course, there is a political tension or even security tension is there, but actually here the argument is that if you look at that, if you cooperate, particularly water or energy or food, your interdependency increases with other countries. When you are dependent on other countries, your interdependence increases, that really help to address many challenges and solutions, including political tension. So one of the way is the cooperation and economic and interdependency is one of the mechanism to address some of the political tension on that, because then there is the interest of both the countries that, okay, it will affect there. So this is this. And your second question, related second question, how political tension climate, this is very, let me give direct example, not explaining. I can tell you, from India, many good, $10 billion of product from India goes to either Singapore or Dubai and again come to Karachi. From Mumbai port, it goes to the Dubai and come to Karachi because of our, not for very harmonious relationship. And you can just measure how much climate the greenhouse we are emitting for all these products are going through the either Dubai or Singapore. It can directly, this is same Punjab this way. From the now, India it is going to Dubai product or Singapore. There is another seal. It is coming from Mumbai to Karachi. And so it is huge. And many other, you can say that there is huge benefit we can get if we collaborate, climate benefit, economic benefit, and environmental benefit. We can do that. Another related question is that hydropower is not a consumptive use, but there is also environment cost. Yes, you are right. Hydropower, of course, there is some environmental cost. There is some biodiversity, other cost there. But if you look at the other benefit like economic benefit, social benefit, and environmental benefit, hydropower is now considered as one of the cleanest energy. Even now, new study shows that the greenhouse gas emission in hydropower much less than even solar energy. We are talking about the solar energy is the cleanest. New studies suggest that the greenhouse gas emission from hydropower even much lower than the thing. And now look at the social benefit. In many countries like Afghanistan, like Tajikistan, the Pakistan, people are not getting even the one bulb for their home. They cannot have any economic activities because of no electricity, even health effect, all that. So economic, social, sanitation, energy, all benefit of the hydropower is quite substantial. And this is the renewable resources, and this is the comparative advantage of mountain. These resources coming from the mountain. And if you don't use that resources, it is going to the sea without any economic benefit for that. So I think, of course, there is a cost, but there is benefit is much higher than the environmental cost you are talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rasool. Yes, many interconnected issues at play here. Now, when many of the questions that came up in the question and answer section had to do with actions. So if I could direct one last question at for Dr. Rajput, specifically related to children, the most vulnerable community whom we have to protect from issues like food insecurity. Are there specific actions that you could suggest that could help reduce the level of food insecurity, specifically related to children and other vulnerable communities? Over to you, Dr. Rajput. It appears you may be on mute.
All right. Now can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So I'll try to be quick considering the time, but I just want to give a comprehensive response to this. We just need to understand that the food insecurity of children cannot be dealt in isolation, As I talked in my presentation, that it is very much strongly linked with the maternal nutrition and the pre-conceptual period, that 18 months window of opportunity. So the food insecurity of the mother affects the food insecurity of the children also. And what is really important is to take it as a package, because that maternal nutrition is the main key driver for child undernutrition. And if we talk about food insecurity, so that food insecurity hits mother and it also hits the child. So this is how it has to be seen. What is really important, giving my response in as short as I can, is really important to understand to the local context and the determinants, looking at the current data, the analysis, and the, any of the service, qualitative and quantitative information, and then contextualizing your interventions in that manner. What is really important is to understand that, food insecurity or nutrition cannot be dealt as one sector. There has to be a coordinated effort and a multi-sectoral interventions where you're dealing with children's water sanitation and hygiene practices, the food and environment of the household and the community. And in addition to that, mother's education is a very important determinant of child nutrition. So all these interventions, empowering women, giving women the right to decide for what she has to feed her child, these interventions specifically are very important for children, because when a mother is deciding the food for a child, she would always prefer to feed the child nutritious food. So it is very important to improve the care practices and also sensitize our communities on and issues related specifically to girls, the gender issues also. So what I would see is that, the approach and what AKDN has seen as interventions or approaches that have really worked is the multi-sectoral approach for addressing nutrition.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajput. Yes, incredibly important. All of these issues are interlinked, and as you stressed, the nutrition of the child has everything to do with the nutrition of the mother. So thank you. And I would like to invite those who still have questions to reach out independently to our speakers, because we'll have to move toward the close of our event this evening. And in moving toward that close, I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Nakul Chetri, who's the program manager for our Transboundary Landscapes program here at ICIMOD, to summarize the proceedings and make concluding remarks. Over to you, Dr. Chetri.
Thank you, Dr. Laurie, and all of our colleagues. First of all, I would like to relate that with our core focus of the Transboundary Landscape program, where we emphasize on healthy ecosystem, healthy people in the landscape. For that which healthy food is also very, very critical and important. As it has been already mentioned by Dr. Abid, that our objective was to have a better understanding on this topic, which is very important, and also understand the possibilities of regional cooperation, as our program is mandated to facilitate the regional cooperation. So after hearing this very important deliverables, delivery from experts, and also with a very strong indication of partnership with AKDN, what I would like to do is to summarize this in three perspectives. First, the context perspective that came in. The second, the challenges perspective that came in. And the third one is the recommendation that I could catch from this rich deliverables. The food and nutrients security is an important topic. I think we all know that we have to depend on this food for our subsistence, livelihood, as well as live in this world. But it is more important for the mountains because our productivity is limited in mountains. But what is prevailing from this deliverables where the system is not that easy and simple. It has complexity. It has integrated other nuts and bolts, and also understanding this nexus is very, very critical and important. As it is also related to nutrition or malnutrition, rather to mention, and also child mortality, immunity to pandemic. So obviously the rich food is very, very critical for us. And that is the context that we are emphasizing on this food security and also the nexus with water and ecosystems and energy. So that is the context that I could catch. So in terms of challenges, there are global drivers of changes that is happening. And the mountains are not aside in terms of these challenges. We do have changing practices driven by some of the culture that is coming from outside and deteriorating our inside culture. We do have culture of having new interests and diversion of interests of our youth generation, new generation. We do have different taste in terms of our food habit. We are changing our food habit, and more interestingly, we also are facing challenges in terms of climate change and other drivers of change over the period of time. And one important factor that also revealed was the new generation and youths are not very interested in terms of mountain agricultural practices. So these are the prevailing challenges that entails that we have to do something. In terms of recommendations, it has been already mentioned that we cannot see the food and nutrient security in isolation. It has been gained as a legacy from our forefathers. The traditional system, traditional knowledge, and traditional practices were there, which enriched and sustained so far. And we have to take that legacy forward by preserving traditional practices and knowledge also. In the prevailing condition of challenges in terms of growing population and other challenges that is faced by mountains, innovations and technologies are important. And if there is any good practices happening based on new technologies and innovations, then that technologies and innovations are critical to be adopted. More importantly, in the prevailing conditions of land use change and other kind of changes happening with different drivers of changes, the policy support is critical because in the enable the condition of mountain food security and nutrient security in our prevailing region, then definitely the policy support from respective government agencies are important. And to happen that and to make it happen, obviously the investment from private sector and other financial agencies is very, very important. It has also the dimension of gender, dimension of equity, and dimension of institutional building and institutional setup, which is very critical to build on these practices. Since it is also related to upstream, downstream in terms of water, in terms of nutrient, and also in terms of trade, it need to be thought in a holistic way at upstream, downstream, through upstream, downstream lens. What is important is that we have been capitalizing on these mountain products with the mountain niche like medicinal and aromatic plants and other heritage that we have with us. So that need to be capitalized and also need to be thought in terms of self-sufficiency and make our food system more vibrant, capitalizing on our own resources rather than depending on external thing. The last but very important aspect that came in is also to think at the think for synergy and also at scale, the landscape scale, the river basin scale, the upstream downstream scale, and also the nexus with other dimensions. In terms of the Transboundary Landscape Program is concerned, our human well-being is at the central of our focus of interventions. So definitely food security and human well-being are very directly and intricately linked. And definitely our focus will be there. And ICIMOD, as our Director General, Dr. Pema James, already indicated that ICIMOD is committed to work on this aspect more specifically. And Transboundary Landscape is also focusing on this aspect quite quite explicitly. So even Transboundary Landscape is committed to go for this in way forward as it was coming from different recommendations. And for this, I would also like to thank all the eminent personalities and experts who enrich our knowledge in terms of this particular food and nutrient security dimension. And also through different presentations and discussions, and also through those who brought questions for clarity to give additional value and additional dimensions. So this is from my side. Thank you all. Over to you, Dr. Laurie.
Thank you, Dr. Nakul Chetri, for that wonderful summary of what has been a very wonderful event. And as I had mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, here at ICIMOD, we're having a week-long marking of International Mountain Day. And we hope that others in this audience here today will join for other events throughout the week, and especially tomorrow on 11 December, International Mountain Day. So I'd like to bring our proceedings here to a close and thank very deeply all of the distinguished speakers. These are critically important issues, and even more so in light of the current circumstances. So we're excited to continue to work together in a partnership on these issues. And I invite those from the audience who didn't have your questions answered to please reach out individually, either through these social media channels or to others of the presenters on these important issues. So thank you, good evening, stay safe, and join us for International Mountain Day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, and everybody. I think it has been a very good event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to everyone. I know we had some technical glitches, but everything came off very nicely, and I think all the presentations were seen. The interaction was good. We can give you some statistics about the number of attendees. Sushmita can do that in her communications and follow-up. Special thank you to you, Sushmita, and Udayan, Saisab, Jitendra, everybody who's here in the back end for making everything happen smoothly.
Special thanks to you, Lori, for managing this webinar with all its technical complications. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good evening.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.